Hey guys, I'm Annie Designs, and today I want to talk about something that I'm really passionate about in the world of cosplay. So ever since I've started out, I've always been fascinated with cosplay masquerades. And when I was 16, I started to enter them myself. Now, the first thing you might be wondering is, well, what is a cosplay masquerade? Most people, when they heard the word masquerade, they tend to think of a masquerade ball, which yes, some conventions do host those, but that is not what I'm talking about here. Typically, when I'm talking about a masquerade, I am talking about a ICG factioned cosplay competition that judges on workmanship judging and presentation or performance. So there's always a stage aspect and a behind the scenes judging aspect to masquerades. So today I'm going to discuss the different levels and how the masquerades typically work, because it's something I've experienced through I've judged, and I've also been in several different masquerades of all different sorts of levels. So I'm going to explain essentially how they work and just make it a little easier to figure out if you're planning to start entering them yourself. So before I start talking about necessarily how the masquerade works, I want to talk about what the ICG masquerades mean. The ICG stands for the International Costumers Guild, and these are the people who come up with the standards for how a fair costume competition could work. And honestly, it's a really well done system. It's quite fair and something I quite enjoy. Usually when I'm looking at costume competitions at a convention, I look to see if they use the ICG rules. Now, the ICG rules are a little bit different in Canada compared to other countries. So if you're Canadian, my little helping guide here might be a little bit more helpful, while if you're American, still helpful, but a few things will differ. I'll try to point out what the differences are as I go along. So these competitions are not like a beauty pageant. It's not just people going on stage and they judge based on who looks the best. There's stuff you don't see in the competition. So there's behind the scene time where the judges actually get to judge your workmanship. And there's also the fact that when they're up there judging, they're not just judging, oh wow, this person looks really a lot like the character. They're judging the technical aspects of their performance, or this was really cute. They're trying to remember performances so that later on they can deliberate together and decide who gets what awards based on their presentation and workmanship. So I'm going to start talking about the different levels now. So with the ICG standards, in Canada, there are 5 distinct divisions or levels that you can enter. There is the junior division, which is for entrants who are under the age of 13. And sometimes they even have 2 subcategories where it's adult made / purchased or child or self-made. So check the rules at your convention to see which of the 2 they might use. The next level there is the first level, first tier I guess would be a good way of putting it, which would be novice. So novice is for those who haven't entered competitions before or who haven't won any awards. Once you get 1 award in the novice division, you're up to the next level. So next is the journeyman division, and the journeyman division is for anyone who's won at least 1 award in the novice division, if not a few journeyman division awards. After that comes artisan. Now artisan is a Canada-only level. So Americans typically don't have this one. Other countries, I'm actually not too sure. So let me know if you're from a different country, a non-North American country, and you have this division, because I'm genuinely curious to know if it's only Canada who has it. But the artisan division is for anyone who has at least 3 awards in the journeyman division. The master division is for anyone who's won 3 or more awards in the artisan division. So at any point, someone can enter any of these divisions as long as they're not going down when they've already won something higher up. So if you won the master division, you can't decide to go into the novice division next time you enter. That's just unfair to the rest of the novice division entrants. So it's not always based on where you feel comfortable entering. So if you're actually someone who's never entered competitions but been cosplaying for years, yeah, go in the artisan or master division or wherever else you feel comfortable going. But if you have won awards but you're just like, oh, I don't feel comfortable going in the master division this time, I'll go artisan this time. Don't do that. That's not very polite to your other competitors. So keep that in mind when you're trying to decide what division to enter. Another point worth mentioning about the Masters Division is some conventions have a rule that if you work in costuming or have studied in costuming, etc., that you have to enter the Masters Division or at least Artisan or Masters. So If you're wondering about where you should enter and you're new to entering competitions, maybe you study in the field or you make at least 50% of your income from costuming, they might have a rule about entering in a higher division. So always keep an eye on that. Every masquerade can sometimes have its own little quirks, little differences in rules. So every time you're about to enter a masquerade, I would suggest looking at the rule page on their masquerade section on the website or anywhere else, because they might have a slight different variation of rules. So what's really nice about this division system is that it's almost like you're trying to level up as you go along. It's a very good motivation for trying to get better and better. And as you go up, typically the level of workmanship and performance tends to rise dramatically. And it gets harder and harder to win awards. So every level, the workmanship and presentation expectations are also bigger. So just because you won a best in class in novice does not mean that would necessarily have won a best in class in journeyman. It depends on the quality expectations. Now there's typically not a chart out there that explains the quality expectations. It can depend from convention to convention, but it is a competition, so you have to keep that in mind. So the person who goes up and above the division expectations will probably win over someone who just meets them. So always try your best, and it's a great way to get motivated to do really good work and, oh no, I made a mistake. I'll just go with it. Compared to, oh no, I made a mistake. It's for a competition piece. I better fix this. Every award you get is worth points. Honorable mentions, not usually considered worth points, but they can be considered half depending on who you ask. Typically awards are given for things that stand out about your costume. It's a competition, you're up against all these different people. But it's not a first, second, third, and honorable mention system. It is, everyone gets an award with a title, like best sewing, for example, or best tailoring, best fitting, best armor, best props, best wig work, things like that. So this also goes for performance, where if you have a skit that was really, really funny, you're probably gonna get Funniest Skit Award. Now the big awards a lot of people are after oftentimes is the Best In Awards. Best In Awards are your Best in Show and Best in Class or division. So Best in Class usually goes to the person whose workmanship or presentation stood out the most. Same with workmanship, it's not just one thing that stood out. Out of everyone, they were the best in the division. They stood out from the rest. And that also goes for Best in Show. Best in Show typically goes to the person who had the most impressive workmanship or presentation in the entire masquerade, all divisions. I've seen a novice win this award before. People always expect to be the master, so that's not always the case. So another important thing to mention is that usually masquerades are judged on two categories. So presentation and workmanship. I've been mentioning them all throughout this video, but they're really important to bring up here because some people see them as judged as one and the same, but most of the times they're judged separately. So even though your costume can impact your performance and vice versa, usually there's a section for these are the presentation awards, these are the workmanship awards. So for example, Best in Show is usually split into two, as is Best in Class. So someone might win Best in Show workmanship because they have the best workmanship in the entire thing, and then another person will win the Best in Show presentation because their performance stood out above the rest. This does not mean that first place or best in Show or first place was cut in half. No. Just for the two different categories you're judged on, these were the best. And that brings up another point. Please never re-enter costumes that have already won something. That's called sandbagging. It's kind of like double dipping. You've already won. That costume has already gotten something. Leave it. The only time that does not come into effect is if you're entering a higher leveled competition. When I'm talking about higher level competitions, there are usually two different levels. You have regional and you've got international. Regional competitions are your smaller masquerades typically, or masquerades that are not internationally recognized by the International Costumes Guild. In Canada, we only have two internationally leveled competitions like this, or complete masquerades, and that would be Anime North in Toronto and Costume Con whenever it's actually in Canada, because that one travels around all of North America. The only big difference between regional and international is just the standards and expectations. So a master in international and a master in regional the master in international is going to have a little bit more expectation. So if you're in that competition, you might have won best in class with it in a regional competition, but in an international one, they're gonna have a little bit more expectations and standards to follow. So I'll put a little chart over here of how it works, but internationally, if you're a novice, you're a journeyman. Internationally, if you are a journeyman, it's like being a regional artisan. If you are an international artisan, it's equivalent to being a regional master. And if you're an international master, well, it's its own level. Essentially, there's no equivalent to it in regional. And if you've become internationally recognized as a master, so you've entered Anime North and you've reached the master level, then you're gonna have to go master every time you enter regional from now on. That's just, again, for fairness, because the standards of judging are just a bit higher in international competitions like that. Something that really separates a ICG Masquerade from other costume competitions is the prejudging aspect. Now, prejudging is when the judges get one-on-one time to talk to you about how you made your costume. This is when they can really see just how much work you put in and just how clean your work is. And this is where Workmanship awards will come from. It won't be coming from the impact you made on stage. It's gonna come from what they saw up close and personal. So the 5-foot or 50-foot rule does not apply to masquerade judging because they're gonna look 5 inches away sometimes. So once the masquerade is over and prejudging has happened and performance judging has happened and the audience has applauded you for your amazing work on stage, there comes the deliberation point, and this is when the judges get together and deliberate who they think should win what. Deliberations can take a very long time. So some costume competitions will announce a winner like that. But that's because they don't have as in-depth workmanship judging or performance judging as the ICG Masquerade. So that's typically why awards are awarded the next day. So that is my brief little introduction to ICG Masquerades in Canada, and most ICG Masquerades, but mine are more Canadian specific. If you have any more questions about how masquerades work or any specifics, please do let me know. I will gladly answer them. And if I don't know the answers, I know a lot of people who do. I'm by no means an expert on masquerades. I've just entered many from a very young age, and I am very passionate about them. So I just want to share what I know and maybe help a few of you out figuring out entering masquerades and such. I'm hoping to do some more videos on more specific things involving masquerades, like what makes a good judge versus a bad judge, or perhaps a few masquerade stories, because oh boy, do I have a lot, because I've entered quite a few from a very young age. So if any of this interests you, please like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and hopefully see you in the next video, because I'm sure I'll have more specific details about masquerades. So thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.